Admiral Han stood at the window of the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching the sunrise over Seoul. The massive building, stretching a kilometer into the sky, reflected the morning light off its self-cleaning graphene surfaces. His calm expression didn't reveal the amusement he felt at the situation developing in Earth's orbit. "They really think we're that far behind?" he asked, turning to face the room full of Earth's top military and diplomatic leaders. Captain Ji-ho, sitting at the glossy black conference table, nodded while swiping through the latest intelligence reports on his tablet. "The Viridian Alliance has spent the last week trying to impress us with technology we developed 50 years ago," he said. "They believe we're still struggling with basic space travel." The room's holographic display showed the Viridian ships in orbit, sleek vessels that the aliens thought would amaze humanity. What they didn't know was that Earth had much more advanced ships hidden in dimensional pocket spaces around the solar system. Their latest message is quite... Captain Ji-ho paused, searching for the right word. Patronizing. He played the communication for the room. A tall, blue-skinned alien appeared in the center of the room. "People of Earth," the recording began, "we understand your isolation must have been difficult. The Viridian Alliance extends its protection and guidance to developing species like yours. We can help you join the galactic community. Under our supervision, of course." Several people around the table covered their smiles. Defense Minister Su-jin actually had to pretend to cough to hide her laugh. "They scan our visible infrastructure and see exactly what we want them to see," Admiral Han said. "Old-style fusion plants instead of our zero-point energy facilities. Chemical rockets instead of our gravity drives. They think they're being generous by offering us advanced technology." Captain Ji-ho straightened his uniform and stood up. "The question is, do we maintain the facade? Our long-term analysis suggests the Viridians aren't a threat, just overconfident." "The President's orders remain unchanged," Admiral Han replied. "We play the role of the grateful, developing civilization, not out of fear or weakness, but because a peaceful first contact is better than showing our full strength and creating unnecessary tension." The meeting continued as they planned Earth's response. They would send Captain Ji-ho as their representative, along with cultural specialist Tu Young. Both were experts at showing polite interest while revealing nothing. In the background, Earth's true capabilities hummed along quietly. Quantum AI systems monitored the Viridian ships, analyzing their every transmission. Automated defense platforms, invisible to standard scans, stood ready, not that they would be needed. The humans had already determined that the Viridians genuinely wanted peace, even if they were being condescending about it. "Remember," Admiral Han said as the meeting concluded, "our goal isn't to trick them. We're simply being polite by not embarrassing them. When the time comes to reveal our true capabilities, it should be done gently." Captain Ji-ho gathered his materials, preparing for his role as Earth's diplomatic liaison. He would spend the next few days pretending to be amazed by technology that his daughter's school used in basic science classes. The thought made him smile. "One last thing," Admiral Han called out as people began to leave. "The Viridians are bringing their best diplomatic team. They think they're doing us a favor. Let's show them that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our ability to be gracious guests and hosts, even when we're being underestimated." As the sun climbed higher over Seoul, Earth's leaders dispersed to their various posts. In orbit, the Viridian ships waited, their crews confident they were about to guide another primitive species into the galaxy's embrace. They had no idea that humanity was actually extending them the same courtesy, welcoming a young, overconfident species into a much larger universe with patience and understanding. The real first contact hadn't even begun. But when it did, it would be a lesson in humility that the Viridian Alliance would never forget. Delivered with a polite smile and perfect manners, the Viridian shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere with a flash of purple engines. Captain Ji-ho and cultural specialist Tu Young watched from the landing pad of the International Diplomatic Center in Singapore. Both wore their simple blue uniforms, deliberately choosing not to wear their more advanced environmental suits. "Remember," Du Young said quietly, "act impressed by their artificial gravity." Jai-Ho nodded, hiding his amusement. The landing pad they stood on actually used much more advanced gravity control systems, currently turned off to maintain their cover. The alien shuttle touched down, and outstepped High Commander Ixal of the Viridian Alliance. The tall, blue-skinned alien wore an elaborate uniform covered in glowing badges and medals. Behind him came 4 other Viridians, all looking around with barely hidden superiority. "Welcome to Earth," Jai-Ho said, bowing slightly. The gesture was calculated, not too deep to suggest submission, but enough to show respect. "Ah, yes," Ixal said in slightly accented English. Their universal translators were obvious devices worn on their necks. Jai-Ho politely didn't mention that humans had perfected direct neural translation decades ago. "We're very pleased to begin your orientation into galactic society." Du Young stepped forward. "We're honored by your presence. Would you like to rest after your journey, or shall we begin the diplomatic discussions?" "Oh, we can begin immediately," Ixal said proudly. "Our artificial gravity makes space travel quite comfortable. I imagine you're eager to learn about such technology." "Very interested," Jai-Ho replied truthfully. He was interested in how the Viridians managed to make artificial gravity so inefficiently. Their system used almost twice the energy of Earth's most basic gravity generators. They walked into the diplomatic center. Jai-Ho and Du Young led their guests past carefully prepared rooms showing exactly the level of technology Earth wanted to display. Hidden sensors in the walls analyzed the Viridians' every move, while appearing to be simple climate control units. "This is our main conference room," Du Young announced, opening doors to reveal a large space with a wooden table. The Viridians looked around with mild disappointment at the primitive setup. "Perhaps," Ixal suggested, "we could show you some examples of real galactic technology." He pulled out a device that projected a large hologram of a Viridian city. Jai-Ho and Du Young exchanged a quick glance before showing appropriate amazement. The hologram's resolution was about half what they used in children's toys. "Remarkable," Jai-Ho said, and he meant it. It was remarkable how the Viridians had achieved space travel while being so inefficient with their technology. "We hope to learn much from your experience." The meeting continued for hours. The Viridians showed more and more of their technology, growing increasingly pleased with the humans' polite interest. They never noticed how Jai-Ho and Du Young asked exactly the right questions to learn about Viridian weaknesses while appearing to be simple diplomats from a developing world. "And of course," Ixal said near the end of the meeting, "we'll help you upgrade your defensive capabilities. The galaxy can be dangerous for younger species." "That's very kind," Jai-Ho replied, thinking about the planetary shield network currently in sleep mode around Earth. "We look forward to your guidance." As the meeting ended, Du Young escorted the Viridians to their quarters. Jai-Ho stayed behind to send his report to Admiral Han. He activated his neural link, a technology the Viridians thought was centuries beyond humanity, and composed his thoughts. "Sir, the Viridians are exactly as we expected. Well-meaning, but overconfident. Their technology is functional but inefficient. Most importantly, they genuinely want to help, even if they're being condescending about it." The response came back instantly. "Good work. Maintain the diplomatic approach. Let them feel good about helping us. When the time comes to show them reality, their goodwill may help prevent any negative reactions." Jai-Ho looked out the window at the Viridian shuttle. In many ways, the aliens reminded him of human history, of times when powerful nations thought they were helping lesser civilizations while ignoring those civilizations' true capabilities. "At least," he thought, "we learned from our mistakes. The Viridians will learn too, eventually, and we'll be polite about teaching them." Engineer Su-Jin walked through the Viridian ship with wide eyes and an expression of wonder. Inside, she was taking detailed mental notes through her neural link, analyzing every piece of technology she saw. The Viridian engineer leading the tour, Kex, seemed very pleased with her apparent amazement. "And this," Kex said proudly, "is our quantum computing core. It can perform calculations that would take your best computers years to solve." Su-Jin nodded enthusiastically while her Neuralink compared the Viridian computer to the quantum processor in her watch. The human device was 3 generations more advanced. "Amazing," she said, and meant it. It was amazing how the Viridians had managed to make quantum computing so complicated. Humans had simplified the process years ago. How do you handle the quantum decoherence? Kex launched into a long explanation of their methods. Su-Jin listened carefully, noting how they used physical quantum stabilizers instead of the more elegant dimensional pocket solution that humans had developed. "Would you like to see our pride and joy?" Kex asked, leading her to a massive room. "This is our faster-than-light drive control center." The room was filled with glowing panels and humming machinery. Su-Jin walked around slowly, pretending to be overwhelmed by the technology. In reality, she was comparing it to the much smaller, more efficient FTL drives that humans used. "How fast can your ships travel?" she asked innocently. "We can cross 100 light-years in just 1 Earth month," Kex announced proudly. Su-Jin kept her face carefully neutral. Human ships could cover that distance in 3 days, but the Viridians didn't need to know that yet. Back in her private quarters that evening, Su-Jin prepared her report for Admiral Han. She activated her Neuralink and began dictating while looking out at Earth through her window. "Sir, I've completed my assessment of Viridian technology. They're roughly where we were 50 years ago, with some interesting variations. Their approach to quantum mechanics is unique, though less efficient than ours. Their energy consumption is much higher than necessary for their technological level." She paused, organizing her thoughts. "Most importantly, they're not hiding anything. What we see is what they have. They genuinely believe they're far ahead of us." The response came quickly. "Any technology we should be concerned about?" "No, sir. Their weapons are standard particle beams and plasma torpedoes. Nothing close to our gravity weapons or dimensional phase cannons. Their shields would stop 20th-century nuclear weapons, but wouldn't hold up against our basic ship-to-ship weapons." Su-Jin walked to her desk and picked up a small cube, a souvenir Kex had given her. It was a Viridian puzzle box, considered one of their most challenging toys. She had solved it in minutes but had pretended to be stumped by it. "One interesting note," she continued her report. "Their medical technology is surprisingly advanced in some areas. They've developed some unique approaches to genetic engineering that might be worth studying. I suggest we arrange a medical technology exchange, one where we can accidentally learn these techniques while sharing our more basic medical knowledge." Admiral Han's response was amused. "Like trading stone tools for bronze ones." "More like trading bronze for bronze, sir. Different techniques, similar results. We might both learn something useful." Su-Jin set down the puzzle cube and watched the sunset paint the sky orange. Tomorrow, she would tour their medical facilities, acting suitably impressed while gathering more data. It was a strange dance, pretending to be less advanced while trying to learn anything useful from their unusual technological approach. "Final thoughts?" Admiral Han prompted. "The Viridians aren't bad people, sir. They genuinely want to help less advanced civilizations. They're just overconfident. When they learn the truth about us, it will be a shock. But I think they're mature enough to handle it, especially if we keep being diplomatic about it. Good work, engineer. Keep playing your role. Let them teach us their unique approaches while thinking they're giving us the basics. Sometimes, even a master can learn from a beginner's fresh perspective." Su-Jin smiled and ended the transmission. Tomorrow would bring another day of pretending to be amazed by old technology. But maybe, just maybe, they'd find some hidden gems among the Viridians' unique approaches to science. After all, there's always something new to learn, even when you're teaching. Commander Ta-Won sat in his command chair aboard the hidden defense station near Earth's moon. The station itself was invisible to normal sensors, wrapped in dimensional shifting fields that the Viridians thought were impossible to create. He watched the main display as 5 ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Mars. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "those are Crimson Blade pirates. They must have followed the Viridian ships here." Taiwan nodded calmly. The pirates thought they had found an easy target, a primitive world just making contact with the galaxy. They were about to learn a hard lesson. "Send a message to Admiral Han," he ordered. "Should we handle this quietly, or is it time for a small demonstration?" The answer came back quickly. "Small demonstration approved. Don't show everything. Just enough to make them regret their choices." Taiwan smiled. "Battle stations. Bring up defensive grid 3 only. Keep the rest hidden." Around Earth, a few dozen satellites became visible. They looked simple and primitive. Exactly what a developing world might have. The pirates saw them and didn't even bother to raise their shields. "They're launching fighters," the sensor officer reported. 20 small craft, heading for the Viridian ships in orbit. The Viridian ships began powering up their weapons, preparing to defend themselves and their new primitive allies. High Commander Ixel sent an urgent message to Earth. "Don't worry. We will protect you from these pirates." "Should we send them a thank you message?" Taiwan's communications officer asked with a small grin. "Let's thank them properly by saving them the trouble." Taiwan straightened in his chair. "Activate defense pattern Delta. Remember, use only basic gravity weapons. Let's not shock our guests too much." The primitive satellites suddenly came alive. Beams of focused gravity shot out, catching the pirate fighters in invisible nets. The small ships stopped dead in space, their engines useless against Earth's gravity control. "Sir, the pirate capital ships are charging weapons." "Let them fire first," Taiwan ordered. "It's more polite that way." The pirates launched a full attack. Plasma torpedoes and energy beams headed toward Earth. They splashed harmlessly against a gravity field that appeared just for a moment, then vanished. "Our turn," Taiwan said quietly. "Target their engines only. No need to destroy them." The satellites fired again. This time, concentrated gravity beams crushed the engine sections of all 5 pirate ships. The vessels went dark, drifting helplessly in space. On the Viridian ships, alarms were going off. Their sensors couldn't understand what they were seeing. According to their data, Earth shouldn't have gravity control technology at all, let alone weapons based on it. "Message from High Commander Ixel," the communications officer reported, trying not to laugh. "He's asking if we need help dealing with the disabled ships." Taiwan smiled. "Tell him thank you, but we have it handled. Launch the recovery ships." Small vessels appeared from the dark side of the moon, looking deliberately simple and outdated. They moved to collect the trapped pirates using obvious tractor beams, not the advanced gravity manipulation they actually used. "The Viridians are scanning our ships intensely," sensors reported. "Good," Taiwan replied. "Let them see exactly what we want them to see. A developing civilization that has a few surprises, but nothing too advanced. They'll think we just got lucky with gravity technology." The recovery ships gathered the pirates efficiently. The fighter pilots and ship crews were transported directly to holding cells through dimensional shifts, but the Viridians only saw what looked like simple shuttle transfers. "Message from Admiral Han. Sir," communications announced. "He says High Commander Ixel is requesting an urgent meeting to discuss our unexpected capabilities." Taiwan nodded. "Tell the Admiral that everything went according to plan. We showed just enough to make them curious, but not enough to make them nervous." As the recovery ships finished their work, Taiwan looked at the main screen where the Viridian ships hovered, still trying to figure out what they had just seen. "Sometimes," he said to his crew, "the best way to keep a secret is to show a smaller secret first. They'll be so busy trying to figure out our gravity weapons that they won't look for anything else." The station's crew nodded in agreement. The pirates had made a serious mistake, but they had also helped Earth maintain its careful balance of revelation and mystery. Now the Viridians would start asking questions, exactly the questions Earth wanted them to ask. High Commander Ixel paced in his private chamber aboard the Viridian flagship. The room's blue lighting pulsed with his agitated mood as he reviewed the reports from the pirate incident. Something wasn't adding up about these humans. "Play the defense grid recording again," he ordered his ship's computer. The holographic display showed Earth's satellites stopping the pirate ships with gravity weapons. Technology that the Viridians had barely started to develop. Technology that should be impossible for a primitive world. A soft chime announced a visitor. "Enter," Ixel called out. Intelligence Officer Min-Ki walked in, carrying a datapad. What Ixel didn't know was that Min-Ki was actually a human agent, carefully placed years ago when the Viridians first entered this sector of space. "Sir, I've completed my analysis of the human defense systems," Min-Ki reported, hiding his amusement at the situation. "It appears they somehow developed gravity manipulation technology without going through the usual development stages." "Impossible," Ixel muttered. "No species jumps straight to gravity control. The power requirements alone." And yet, Min-Ki added carefully, their satellites handled it easily, with very small power signatures. Ixel stopped pacing. That was another thing that bothered him. The human satellites had used almost no energy for effects that should have required massive power plants. "There's more, sir," Min-Ki continued. "Our cultural analysis team has noticed something odd. The humans are always perfectly polite, always interested in our technology. But what? But they never seem surprised. Impressed, yes. Amazed, certainly. But never surprised. It's as if they're acting." Ixel finished the thought. Min-Ki nodded, secretly enjoying the commander's growing realization. Engineering team reports that engineer Sujin asked several questions about our quantum computers yesterday. Very basic questions, but somehow very specific, almost like she already understood the principles. Ixel walked to his window, looking down at the blue-green planet below. "Check their global communication networks again. There must be something we missed." "Sir," Min-Ki said carefully, "what if we didn't miss anything? What if what we can't find is actually the important part?" Ixel turned sharply. "Explain." "We see their internet, their satellite networks, their visible infrastructure. But during the pirate attack, those defense satellites seemed to appear from nowhere. What else might they be hiding?" In the following silence, Min-Ki activated his hidden neural link, sending a quick message to Earth. "The seeds of doubt are planted. Proceeding as planned." Ixel pressed a button on his desk, bringing up more holographic displays. "Show me the Earth cities again. Focus on their power generation systems." Images of human cities floated in the air. Min-Ki pointed to various features. "They use a mix of fusion, solar, and wind power, all very basic technologies." "Yes," Ixel said slowly, "but look at their power consumption versus output. The numbers don't match. These power plants don't generate enough energy to support cities this size, even with their primitive technology. Unless," Min-Ki suggested, "unless they have other power sources we can't detect." Ixel's face showed growing concern. "What about their space fleet? We've only seen a few chemical rockets and those simple recovery ships from the pirate incident." "Exactly, sir. We've only seen what they've shown us." Ixel sat heavily in his chair. "Contact the Alliance Council. Tell them." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "Tell them we may need to reassess our approach to Earth." Min-Ki bowed slightly and left the room. Once outside, he sent another message through his neural link. "Phase 1 complete. The Viridians are starting to question everything. Recommend proceeding to Phase 2. Back in his chamber, Ixel reviewed everything he knew about Earth. The perfectly polite humans who were always grateful, but never overwhelmed. The technology that shouldn't exist but worked too well. The power readings that didn't make sense. "Computer," he said quietly, "access historical records. Find any other cases of primitive species displaying unexpected capabilities." The computer hummed. No exact matches found. However, Analyzing human diplomatic responses suggests patterns similar to advanced negotiation techniques. They appear to be following established first contact protocols. From the other side, Ixel stared at the Earth through his window. For the first time, he wondered if his ships weren't the most advanced ones in orbit. The thought was both disturbing and strangely exciting. "We came to guide them," he murmured, "but what if they've been guiding us all along?" The Singapore International Diplomatic Center's main conference room looked different today. Captain Jaho and Ambassador Yujin had removed the simple wooden table and chairs. Instead, the room now held a sleek, black platform that hummed quietly with hidden power. High Commander Ixel and his delegation entered, then stopped suddenly. Their scanning devices were going crazy, detecting energy signatures that shouldn't be possible. "Welcome," Ambassador Yujin said with a warm smile. "We thought it was time for a proper technology exchange." "Proper technology exchange," Ixel repeated slowly, looking at his scanner in disbelief. "Yes," Captain Jaho said. "You've been very kind, sharing your technology with us. Now it's our turn to share some of ours." Jaho pressed a small button on his wrist. The black platform lit up, and above it appeared a perfect hologram of the Milky Way galaxy. Unlike the Viridian holograms, this one had no projectors visible. It simply existed in the air, clear as crystal. "This is our current map of the galaxy," Yujin explained casually. "We've explored about 60% of it so far. Your territory is here." She pointed to a small section of space that lit up in blue. The Viridian delegation stared in shock. Their own maps only covered about 10% of the galaxy. "That's impossible," one of Ixel's scientists whispered. "The power needed for exploration on that scale." "Oh, power isn't a problem," Jaho said kindly. He touched another control, and the wall of the room became transparent. Beyond it, they could see a small cube floating in the air. It was about the size of a coffee mug, glowing with a soft white light. "That's one of our zero-point energy generators," Yujin explained. "This building runs on it. We have smaller ones for personal devices, larger ones for cities." Ixel found his voice. "But your power plants, the fusion reactors we saw." "Movie sets, mostly," Jaho admitted. "We keep them running to maintain appearances. They're useful for training purposes too." The hologram changed to show a human ship emerging from what looked like a fold in space. "This is our standard faster-than-light drive in action," Yujin continued. "We can cross the galaxy in about 2 weeks if we're in a hurry." One of the Viridian engineers sat down hard in a chair, looking faint. "We should probably show them the terraforming project too," Jaho suggested. The hologram shifted to show Mars, where huge machines were turning the red planet green. "That's a bit of a hobby project," Yujin said modestly. "We expect it'll be ready for full colonization in about 5 years. High Commander Ixel raised his hand like a student in class. "Why?" He had to clear his throat. "Why didn't you tell us?" "Well," Jaho said gently, "you were so excited about helping us. It seemed rude to disappoint you. Besides, we wanted to understand your intentions first." "Our intentions?" Ixel asked. Yujin nodded. "We needed to know if you were truly interested in peaceful contact, or if you were looking for worlds to dominate. You proved to be genuinely helpful, even if a bit overconfident." The hologram changed again, showing Earth's actual defense grid. Thousands of satellites in dimensional pockets, weapon platforms that could stop entire fleets, and shields that could survive supernovas. "We want to be clear," Jaho said firmly, but kindly. "We're showing you this not as a threat, but as an invitation to real partnership, one based on truth, not assumptions." Ixel looked around the room, seeing it with new eyes. Every piece of primitive technology he'd seen before had been carefully crafted to tell a story. The humans hadn't lied. They'd just let the Viridians believe what they wanted to believe. "You've been testing us," he said finally. "Learning about you," Yujin corrected. "And we like what we've learned. Your people are kind, willing to help others, and capable of adapting to new information. That's why we're having this conversation now. There's so much we could learn from you, one of the Viridian scientists said excitedly. And we from you, Jai-Ho replied sincerely. Your genetic engineering techniques are fascinating. Different from ours, but very elegant. Perhaps we could start there. High Commander Ixal straightened his uniform, trying to regain his composure. I need to contact the Alliance Council. Of course, Yu Jin smiled. Take all the time you need. We've been patient so far. What's a few more days between friends? The emergency alarm woke High Commander Ixal in the middle of the night. Red lights flashed through his quarters on the Viridian flagship as he rushed to the bridge. Report, he ordered, still adjusting his uniform. Sir, we're receiving distress calls from 3 Viridian colony worlds, his communications officer said. They're under attack. The Ravagers have returned. Ixal's blue skin turned pale. The Ravagers were the stuff of nightmares, a species that lived only to consume and destroy. The Viridian Alliance had fought them off 10 years ago, but only at a terrible cost. Show me, he commanded. The main screen lit up with images from the colonies. Massive black ships filled the skies, each one looking like a twisted mass of metal thorns. Ravager dropships were landing troops on the surface. How many ships? Over 300, sir. They must have been building their fleet for years. Our closest battle groups are 2 weeks away at maximum speed. Ixal gripped his chair tightly. The colonies would fall long before help could arrive. Unless... He looked at the blue-green planet visible through the bridge window. Earth. The humans, with their casual mentions of cross-galaxy travel and their hidden weapons. Sir, his second-in-command asked quietly, should we contact Earth? Ixal's pride fought with his duty to protect his people. It had been only 3 days since the humans had revealed their true capabilities. The Alliance Council was still debating how to handle the situation. But right now, thousands of Viridians were dying. Open a channel to Earth Defense Command, he ordered. Admiral Han's face appeared on the screen almost instantly, as if he had been waiting for the call. He was wearing what looked like sleek clothes, but his eyes were alert. High Commander, Han said politely. How can we help? Ixal swallowed his pride. Admiral, 3 of our colony worlds are under attack by a species we call the Ravagers. They are beyond our ability to stop. I know we have no right to ask, but... Say no more, Han interrupted gently. He pressed something off-screen. Commander Tadwan, deploy the 5th Fleet. Maximum speed. Ixal blinked in surprise. The 5th Fleet. But your ships have never been seen in this sector. Han smiled. Who said they haven't been here? We just kept them hidden. They've actually been patrolling this sector for years. Suddenly, space seemed to ripple around them. Huge ships appeared out of nowhere, sleek vessels that made the Viridian flagship look small and old. Ixal's sensors officer gasped as the readings came in. Launching now, a new voice said. Commander Tadwan, we'll reach the first colony in 17 minutes. 17 minutes, Ixal repeated in shock. But it's over 10,000 light years. We've made some improvements to our drives, Han said modestly. High Commander, would you like to accompany our ships? It might help calm your people to see a familiar face. Ixal nodded, still struggling to process what was happening. Yes. Thank you. Excellent. Captain Jai-Ho will transport to your bridge in a moment to help coordinate. Before Ixal could ask how Jai-Ho would transport across the thousands of kilometers between Earth and his ship, the captain simply appeared on the bridge in a flash of light. He was wearing what looked like a simple black uniform, but Ixal's scanners couldn't even detect it, as if it wasn't quite in the same dimension. Shall we go save your people? Jai-Ho asked with a kind smile. Ixal looked at his crew, seeing the same realization in their eyes that he felt in his heart. All this time, they had thought they were the advanced ones, coming to help a primitive world. Instead, they had been living next door to a civilization so advanced it made them look primitive in comparison. And yet, When they needed help, these humans didn't hesitate. They didn't demand anything in return. They didn't even mention the Viridians' earlier condescension. They just offered help, freely and immediately. "Yes," Ixal said finally. "Let's go save my people. And afterward, perhaps we can discuss what it means to be truly advanced." Jaiho's smile widened. "I think you're already beginning to understand." Fleet Commander Didn sat in her command chair aboard the Earth battleship Peaceful Resolution. The name was a perfect example of human thinking, a powerful warship named after diplomacy. The massive vessel led the Fifth Fleet as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the first Viridian colony. High Commander Ixal stood beside her chair, his eyes wide as he saw the battle below. Hundreds of Ravager ships filled the sky over his colony world. On the surface, ugly black drop ships were landing troops everywhere. "Your people are still fighting in the capital city," Didn said, checking her displays. "We'll start there." She pressed a button on her chair. "All ships, remember our rules of engagement. Disable, don't destroy. Every life matters." Ixal looked confused. "But the Ravagers never surrender. They fight to the death." Didn smiled. "They've never fought us before." She turned to her weapons officer. "Deploy the containment fields." Suddenly, invisible walls of twisted space appeared around groups of Ravager ships. The black vessels tried to fire their weapons, but the energy blasts curved away harmlessly, caught in the gravity fields. "Ground teams, begin civilian evacuation," Didn ordered. "Use the pocket spaces we prepared." Ixal watched in amazement as entire city blocks of his people simply vanished, transported to safety in seconds. The Ravager ground troops found themselves attacking empty buildings. "Now for the interesting part," Didn said. "Let's introduce ourselves to the Ravagers." Small balls of light shot out from the human ships. Each one stopped next to a trapped Ravager vessel. Ixal's scanner couldn't even detect them. The technology was too advanced. "Translation field active," reported the communications officer. "Broadcasting now." Didn's voice echoed through space, automatically translated into the Ravager's own language. "This is Fleet Commander Didn of Earth. Your ships are contained. Your ground forces are isolated. We offer you a choice: surrender and live, or continue fighting and be disabled. Either way, this attack ends now." The Ravagers responded with more weapons fire, all of it useless against the containment fields. "They never listen the first time," Didn said calmly. "Show them our second option." The small balls of light pulsed once. Instantly, every Ravager ship went dark. Their engines died, their weapons powered down, and even their life support systems switched to emergency backup. What did you do to them?" Ixal asked in wonder. "Quantum state manipulation," Didn explained. "We changed their ship's power systems into their lowest energy state. They're alive, but helpless. Now for the ground forces." She pressed another button. The Ravager troops on the surface suddenly found themselves unable to move, caught in personal gravity fields. "Begin collection," Didn ordered. "And someone please get those civilians back to their homes." The city blocks that had vanished earlier reappeared. Not a single building was damaged, not a single civilian hurt. The Viridian colonists came out of their houses to see Ravager troops floating helplessly in the air, while human ships cleaned up the invasion force. "Second colony is reporting similar success," the communications officer announced. "Third colony will be secured in 5 minutes." Ixal shook his head in amazement. "You make it look so easy. We fought the Ravagers for years. Different approaches, different results," Didn said kindly. "Your people fought bravely, but you were fighting their way, with pure force. We prefer to think around problems." "What will you do with them?" Ixal asked, looking at the captured Ravager ships. "First, we'll talk to them. Really talk, not just fight. Every species has reasons for what they do. If we understand them, we might find a better way forward." Didn stood up and straightened her uniform. Would you like to join the diplomatic team? After all, this is your space. We're just here to help." Ixal looked at her with new understanding. Even now, with their overwhelming power on display, the humans were being polite. They weren't taking over, weren't demanding anything. They were still treating the Viridians as equals. "Yes," he said finally, "I would like that. And thank you. Not just for the help, but for how you helped. You could have made us feel weak or primitive. Instead, you treated us with respect." Hijin smiled. "That's what real strength is about, isn't it? Not showing off power, but knowing when and how to use it wisely." Below them, the Viridian colony returned to normal life, its people already telling stories about the day their primitive allies turned out to be guardian angels in disguise. 1 month after the Ravager incident, the Singapore International Diplomatic Center hosted another meeting. This time, the simple wooden table was back, but by choice rather than deception. Captain Jeho sat on one side with Ambassador Yujin, while High Commander Ixal led the Viridian delegation. "The Alliance Council has reviewed everything," Ixal began, placing a data pad on the table. "We've learned some interesting lessons about ourselves in the process." Yujin smiled warmly. "Oh, please share your thoughts." "When we first came to Earth, we thought we were being generous, helping a younger species join the galactic community." Ixal's face showed a mix of embarrassment and amusement. "We didn't realize we were the younger ones." "Age isn't everything," Jeho said kindly. "Your people have developed some fascinating approaches to problems we solved differently. Your genetic engineering techniques, for example, are quite elegant." Ixal nodded. "Yes, we've noticed that's a pattern. Humans could have simply given us your advanced technology, but instead, you let us show you our ways first. You were actually learning from us while pretending to learn basics." "Every civilization develops differently," Yujin explained. "Sometimes a fresh perspective shows us a better way to do things. We weren't just being polite. We were genuinely interested in your methods." The door opened and Admiral Han entered, followed by Engineer Sujin. They carried a strange device that looked like a mix of Viridian and human technology. "The joint research team just finished their first project," Sujin announced proudly. "We combined our genetic engineering techniques with human quantum computing. The results are remarkable. Better than either approach alone," Han added. "This is what real cooperation looks like." Ixal looked at the device with pride. "The Council has a proposal," he said. "We'd like to rewrite our alliance agreement, not as teachers and students, but as true partners." "We'd like that," Yujin replied. She pulled out an old-fashioned paper document. "We took the liberty of drafting some suggestions." As Ixal read the document, his eyes widened. This gives us access to your faster-than-light technology and your defense systems. Just like that." "Just like that," Jeho confirmed. "We trust you. You proved yourselves when you came to help a world you thought was primitive. Your hearts were in the right place, even if your assumptions weren't." "And the Ravagers?" Ixal asked. "The diplomatic team reports good progress," Han said. "Once we understood their language properly, we learned they were running from something worse. We're helping them find a new home in an uninhabited sector. Sometimes, people just need to be heard." Sujin activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Different colored lights represented various civilizations, including the Viridians in blue and humans in green. "Together, we can do more than either of us could alone," she said. "Different perspectives, different approaches, but working toward the same goals." "There is one thing I don't understand," Ixal said slowly. "Why did you let us think you were primitive for so long? Why not show your true strength immediately?" Jeho and Yujin exchanged glances. "Would you have believed us?" Jeho asked gently. "Or would you have seen us as a threat?" "By letting you form your own conclusions," Yujin added. "We gave you time to know us as people first, to see our character before our capabilities." Ixal thought about this. He remembered how the humans had helped his colonies without taking control, how they had disabled the Ravagers without destroying them, how they had always been polite even when they could have been arrogant. You were teaching us all along, he realized. Not about technology, but about wisdom. Teaching and learning. Hand-corrected. That's what good allies do. As they signed the new treaty, Ixal looked around the simple room with its wooden table. Now he understood. The humans didn't need fancy technology to show their advancement. Real strength wasn't about showing off power. It was about knowing when to be gentle, when to be firm, and how to be polite even when you're the strongest one in the room. To new beginnings, Yujin said, raising a glass of earth wine. To new understandings, Ixal replied, finally feeling like he truly understood his human friends. Outside, Earth's sun set on a galaxy that was changing. Not through force or fear, but through patience, wisdom, and the simple power of being polite.